Good morning, everybody. Khartoum is the capital of Sudan. The Nile River flows through it on its way north. And it was on this date, January 26, in 1885, that the British Army was defeated there and their captain, Charles Gordon, was killed. This is part of what we call the scramble for Africa. This map of Africa from the late 1800s shows the pink area controlled by Britain. So our focus is on the area between Lake Victoria and Egypt, basically modern Sudan. That's the focus. So here's a picture of the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869. This reminds us of the importance of the Nile River, especially for Britain and France. And that's one of the reasons why Gordon is even going to be where he is when he dies. So here he is, Charles Gordon. He was the fourth generation in his family to be in the British military. He was very charismatic. He was pretty good at what he did, but he was also insubordinate and often disobeyed orders he didn't like. When he started his career in the Army, he was in the engineers. So here's a pontoon bridge, but engineers build bridges. They built fortifications, and when the Crimean War began in the 1850s in the Black Sea area, Gordon was there as part of the British Army. He was involved in combat. He was a pretty good soldier, but it looked like he had a death wish, and many people who knew him remarked on that. Later, he was in China as an observer of the Taiping rebellion, which is its own story, and he was admired by friend and foe alike. He started wearing Chinese clothes, and he got the nickname Chinese Gordon, which stuck with him until he died. Well, events occurred, and the British government wanted Gordon to go down to the Sudan area to keep an eye on things, report back, because there was a lot of social ferment there. People really resented some of the policies of the British. And one man who was on everybody's radar was this guy, Muhammad Ahmed, who called himself the Mahdi. He's kind of a prophet. And he led a revolt in basically the Sudan, partly for political reasons, partly religious, partly economic. And this map shows the area controlled by the Mahdi's troops at the time of our story. They actually had defeated a combined British-Egyptian army and had killed the British leader. So William Gladstone, pictured here, who was the prime minister, decided that Sudan was not worth it. So he ordered British citizens to leave Sudan and sent Gordon to supervise the evacuation. And here's Khartoum. It's where the Blue and White Niles come together. A lot of Brits were there. Gordon was there, but he disobeyed orders and decided to stay. He had lots of guns and lots of ammo, but that was clearly over and above what he was supposed to do. So the Mahdi and his troops surrounded Khartoum. They did a siege. Eventually, they broke through the city and they killed Gordon. And this painting by George Joy is quite famous. We're not sure how Gordon died, though, but they did cut his head off. 13 years later was this battle, Omdurman. It's outside of Khartoum. Many people think it was revenge for Gordon. In fact, it was probably to send a message to the French. But in this battle where 47 Brits died, but thousands of the Mahdi's troops died, was a very young Winston Churchill. So here's a statue of Gordon in Khartoum, and it stayed there until Sudan became independent in 1956, and then they sent it back to Britain. And here it is today outside of a school named after Gordon, west of London a bit, but you can see he's on a camel. In 1966, Hollywood made this movie, Khartoum, in which Charlton Heston played Gordon, and Laurence Olivier played the Mahdi with way too much makeup on. In the movie, they actually meet and talk, but that never happened in real life. But when it's time for Charlton Heston to be killed, you can see they clearly modeled this scene on the painting by Mr. Joy. And in the movie, he gets stabbed in the chest with a spear, although we don't know for sure. So here's a map of the British Empire at its height. There's lots of drama behind all the red, and certainly the story of Gordon and the Brits in East Africa is one of the most dramatic.